What is going on, everyone? I hope you're having a great day. And it seems like we started doing this just yesterday. So I did look back. I have done this for, I think, every week. It was just a spur of the moment thing. Has done well. I appreciate the feedback you guys have given. A lot of people have lambasted me for my rankings of certain teams. And in truth, I really haven't taken it all that seriously. I really did it just as an excuse to talk about other teams, trying to get into talk about other teams. But this one, I thought about. This is going to be the final ranking extravaganza. I've already ranked every team. I've thought about it. I have written down each team in the conference, your best win, and a bad loss or worse loss. Also have your total offense and total defenses rankings, and I even looked at like common opponents and really tried to give a fair shake to every team in doing this final ranking. A lot to talk about. Obviously, Miami does Miami things. All they had to do was take care of Syracuse. And we're going to talk about it. Syracuse, no one thought Syracuse was going to be a 9-win team that's not a Syracuse fan or Fran Brown. But Miami should not have lost to them. They should not have lost to Georgia Tech. This is why I don't know if they're a playoff team, just because when you have one of the easier schedules in the ACC and you can't run it, it's a problem, right? Now, we're going to see other teams have that problem too, but it is what it is. Fights break out. I don't know why this year it's been a problem with planting flags. I don't remember teams fighting about it. Ohio State, Michigan people pepper spray. Fines were, I guess, levied after the NC State UNC game. Like, I'm looking down these. I hope Jeff Collins caught a punch to the mouth. We'll talk about him too. My thing is, like, don't do away with the flag planting. If you don't like someone planting a flag on your field during rivalry week, win the game. All that energy you have to fight after the game, why don't you invest that into winning the game, and then you don't have to worry about it? So let's just get into it. Crap, I selected the wrong thing. OBS is kind of finicky. Did it again. Oh, I need to minimize myself. There we go. So here we go. I will put up last week's rankings as well. And there's going to be some big changes here. I realized that I was none too smart on some of these. Like, I think Boston College might be low here. Cal seems way too high. I think Tech seems kind of low, given how they've played in the back half of the season. Pitt seems high. Yeah. So we're going to go from bottom to top. No surprise. Worst team in the ACC, and it is just objectively true, is Florida State. 2-10 overall. 2-5 in the ACC. And we talk about it almost every week. It couldn't be more fitting for how these guys acted all off season. Suing your own conference, suing networks, bitch whine and complain about everything. And look, you got all the sympathy in the world, I think, when you got left out of the playoffs last year. And I guess, you threw a fit. Now you don't got to worry about, not only do you not got to worry about being left out of the playoffs, you don't have to worry about playing a bowl either. Now, it's insane to me that Florida State, at the end of the season, they hire Gus Malzahn from Central Florida, who I believe, had he stayed 2 or 3 more years, might have been fired from Central Florida. What are you excited about with Gus Malzahn? I get you flip a bunch of recruits, but who's excited about Gus Malzahn? Oh, well, yeah, maybe he's not the best head coach, but he's a great OC. I mean, I don't know. He hasn't been an OC in a while. It's a very gimmicky type thing that he does. If I'm Florida State, I'm not super happy about hiring Gus Malzahn. It's a weird hire. Maybe I did see on Twitter the number one target for Central Florida. They're looking on finalizing a deal is Gus Malzahn. Maybe they'll do like a Bill Belichick type thing. Which, speaking of, North Carolina interviewed Bill Belichick, but we'll talk about them in a second. Florida State loses to Florida 31-11. I get Florida's playing much better, but they've been down, right? Can't take care of either one of your rivals in the state of Florida. Your best win is Cal, because you only have 2 of them. Only 2 wins for these guys. Bad losses, I mean, we would go on and on. Boston College, Duke, UNC. And as we go through these, when we look at best wins and bad losses, you might say, oh, well, you called that a bad loss for them and a good win for them. It's relative to the expectation of the team and just relative to where the team is now. So what is a good win for one team might not be a good win for another, right? 17th total offense in the conference, dead last in total offense, 14th ranked total defense. I get that they've made a blatant push to get into the top 25 in recruiting as of late, but it's going to take more than 1 year at a minimum. And it's probably going to take 2 years or 3 years, possibly 5, to really fully recover from what happened. And all offseason, all I heard from moronic Florida State fans was our branding, our TV numbers. You know who was the most viewed team in the conference? The good guys. The good guys. The Georgia Institute of Technology was the number 1 viewed team. So you don't even have that to hang your hat on. What would you say about Florida State right now?
To say, in all honesty, it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Awful. Hopefully that guy does end up uploading that he ate dog shit. But we didn't even go through the tiers. We got dead last Florida State, though, in the Miami ACC championship tier, because that's a big 0 and will remain so for another year. We'll talk about them. UNC's recruiting class is the next to last awful tier. If you didn't know, UNC is 98th currently in recruiting. Then we have the Toilet Bowl tour tier, mid 30%. So 30% of the conference would be 5 teams. So you got the mid 30, the top 30. So we'll have the top 5 teams, then the next 5, and then we'll go through the rest of them. So that'll include the ACC champion. So there'll be 5 teams between the top 2 tiers, 5 teams in the mid 30, and so on and so forth. So Florida State, you're awful. You deserve everything that's happened this season. Your fans deserve everything that have happened this season. But I'm sure you'll be off-season world champs again, right? Maybe you'll make rings. Like, who did that? Was it Central Florida did that? My God, I think it was. And then you printed 17-0 or 12-0 national title rings. Maybe you can print, best 2-loss team ever to play rings this year. 16. Also, no surprise. Stanford's 3-9, 2-6 in the conference. Their first year in the conference still feels weird at the end of their first year to say they're an SEC or an ACC team. They lose to San Jose State 34-31. San Jose State's not an awful team either. They're 7-5. But not a good year for Stanford. Stanford's been down for some time. Have they been good since the disgraced Michigan coach left and went to the NFL? I don't think so. I mean, have they been good since Andrew Luck was there? Maybe a Stanford fan will comment and tell me. Quality win or best win. Syracuse. They did go to the fart box, beat Syracuse in their own house. But, still not very good. Bad losses. Like they lost to a ton of teams, right? They lost to 9 teams. Wake, not a particularly good loss for them. Total offense in they're 16th in the conference. Total defense, they're 16th in the conference, and they're 16th, the trees on WreckTalk's list. Who do we have next? 15th. Let me look on my good old list. Wake Forest. And I kind of hate this. Wake Forest I don't know how we'll split this, by the way, down here. Wake Forest. How would I say this? I mean, I have respect for Wake. They've been down for the past 2 or 3 years, 4-8, 2-6 in the conference. They lose to Duke in a pretty thrilling game on rivalry week, 23-17. They've got the 12th ranked total offense, 17th ranked total defense. Just not a good team this year. Best win is probably NC State. Again, that's relative to where they are currently. Good win probably for where they are. Bad loss. They lost to Louisiana. You should not be losing to a group of 5 school. Not much I can say about Wake Forest. When we played them and beat them last year, all I heard was it was the weather's fault. Boy, when you lose, I guess it's like Ohio State fans, the weather and all these things that both teams have to play in are all of a sudden oh so important. 14th best team in the conference. 14th in WreckTalk's power rankings. Virginia. I've gone up back and forth with Virginia. They started off kind of hot, in my opinion. Or did they? Let me look at their schedule. 5-7 in overall, 3-5 in the conference. I mean, they started off 2-0. In their first 5 games, they won 4 of them. Now, they came versus Richmond, Wake Forest, Coastal Carolina, Boston College. But Boston College is not that's a quality win for Virginia for where they've been. I kind of thought this season that Elliott would get the hot seat off of him or cool off the hot seat. He doesn't finish well, though. I mean, what were they in their last 5 games? They were 1-4 in their last 5 games. So I'm sure Tony Elliott will be on the hot seat again next year. I do think they'll retain him. I think it's bowl or fired next year for Tony Elliott, though. What did I say? Did I say who they played this week? Now I've lost my place. No, they lose to Virginia Tech. They get handled 37-17. Best win for Virginia, probably Pitt, but Pitt had lost the last 5 games of their season. Bad losses. I guess you could say Virginia Tech, maybe Maryland. Maryland was not a particularly good team. Virginia, 14th total offense in the ACC and 15th total defense. So we'll have to see what goes on with Virginia, but as of right now, things are not looking good at Virginia. We'll see if Elliott can finally get the ship turned next year. All right, 13th in WreckTalk's power ranking, Cal. I said they were going to drop early. They are 6-6 overall, and they're going to have a better record than people above them. The thing is, they're 2-6 in the ACC. Seems impressive with where they're ranked in like total offense, total defense, 9th total offense, and 3rd total defense. Look, they had a good defense. It just did not equate to any more than 2 ACC wins. I mean, their best wins, I guess you'd say Auburn, but Auburn's not a very good team right now. Auburn killed it in recruiting this year. I think they're top 10, but not a particularly great win. It's one of their best wins, though. And Wake Forest, bad losses, Florida State. The only is that the only ACC win? What was Florida State's other win? Cal and Charleston Southern. Yeah. So you gave Florida State their only and lone ACC win. They're the only team in the ACC that did not play during rivalry week. I'm just not all that impressed in Cal, and losing to Florida State. I mean, it's just like,
what? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Yeah, you can't. They did. Can't do that. So we'll put Cal on here. The 12th in the WreckTalk power ranking, North Carolina. North Carolina, they're another team that you would say things couldn't go a whole lot worse for. They end up 6-6 and 3-5 in the ACC. But you retire. No, you don't even retire. whatever, Mac Brown can't decide, whether he wanted to leave or not. It seems to me, after the JMU game, they get beat 70-50, historic loss. They bring in Jeff Collins. He's supposed to be the guy that turns their defense. Now, if they watch WreckTalk for any length of time, they'd know that this idiot, number one, that
boy ain't right.
Something ain't right with him. Okay? He was never going to be the guy to turn your defense. He's awful, and I mean awful. And Mac Brown is willing to step down, or it gets out that he's willing to step down after that game. Doesn't do it. Then, we kind of are all under the understanding that this is his farewell tour. And then what, 2 weeks ago or a week ago, he says, nope, I'm definitely going to be back for 2025. Then North Carolina comes out and says, nope, we're definitely not. You're fired. This is your last game for NC State, which he loses 35-30. And another really good game, getting a fight with everyone after, I guess try and do what you couldn't do during the game, after the game. But UNC is down as bad, even when they had Larry Fedora, who has the same record basically as Mac Brown in the same time span. I don't know what it is with these like legacy coaches. They don't ever want to step down. It's definitely time for Mac to step down. He is. They're in the middle of their coaching search. They've interviewed Bill Belichick, Arthur Smith. I think they're who are they trying to get now? I know they were going after the DC for Georgia, but I don't think that's their top pick right now. 89th in recruiting right now, even in having probably the worst season you've had in some time. The snafu with Mac Brown, you should not be recruiting 89th. And your best, highest rated recruit is named Butts. I couldn't think of anything more fitting. And it is hilarious that in 1 year, Jeff Collins ruins the legacy of Mac Brown. What are they ranked? Total offense, they're 7th, which was kind of surprising. I didn't think they were necessarily that high. Total defense, 12th. That's what you get for hiring Jeff Collins. North Carolina, not a good team. They are 12th in the rankings. 11th, and I went back and forth, and I think you could make a good argument that either you could switch North Carolina or NC State. I just felt like, well, one, NC State's beat them head-to-head. And NC State's just in a better spot. NC State has a quarterback that if he stays, I think is going to be very good for him, and CJ Bailey. They almost beat Tech in Atlanta. Probably feel like they should have beat Tech in Atlanta. Try a 58-yard field goal. It misses by a Georgia fan's penis length. And NC State 6-6, 3-5 in the conference. Their total offense 11th, total defense 13th, which they've really risen above their pay grade. Now, look, it is hilarious that all of these darlings, dark horses of the ACC, didn't really do crap. NC State was ranked in the top 25 preseason, and well underperformed their expectations. They bring in McCall. He medically retires due to concussion issues. Here's the thing. I hate that, and that's awful, and I feel bad for that kid. But NC State's better off with CJ Bailey. Their best wins, I guess, North Carolina and Northern Illinois, maybe, for a non-ACC. Bad losses. Look, they lost to Wake. They lose to Duke, which I don't think for where the expectation that NC State had, they should be losing to Duke. Duke clearly a better team, though. They do get the win 35-30 over UNC. But I think that's a fair spot. I actually feel much better talking through it that NC State should be ranked ahead of UNC in the power rankings. Now, we're in the top 10. I guess since these are bowl eligible teams, minus Cal. Cal's bowl eligible, but you can't be a 2-win ACC team and move up to this tier. Now we're into the mid-30. So we're into the top 10 of the ACC. I've got Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, very up and down this year. Another team, speaking of darlings of the ACC, Supposed to be a dark horse to win the conference, open up and lose to Vandy. That doesn't look like as bad of a loss anymore. Vandy goes on to beat Alabama. Vandy having one of their best seasons they've had in a while. Vandy gets their first win over a top 5 team or a top 10 team. Virginia Tech 6-6, 4-4 in the ACC. They beat Virginia 37-17. Total offense 10th in the ACC. Total defense 7th. I've got their best win as Georgia Tech. Look through their schedule and show me a better win they have than Georgia Tech. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Georgia Tech fan. Is Drones gone after this year? It'll be interesting to see what they have for next year. The thing was they returned a lot this year, and that was the justification for why they should be a dark horse to win the ACC. C-Dog and I were like, well, wait, but those are a bunch of guys that have not really done anything. I get they finished strong last year, but these are a bunch of guys that are playing on a team that's a 6 or 7 win team, which is good. They're improving. What makes you think they should be an ACC contender, though? Prove to be right. Bad losses. I put Duke, too, just relative to the expectation of Virginia Tech had. No one had them losing to Duke, but also no one had Duke winning 9 games. Vandy, though it's not doesn't look like an awful loss, but again, with expectation, shouldn't be losing to Vandy. So I got Virginia Tech at 10. 9. I've got Boston College. And looking back at this, you could probably move Virginia Tech or Boston College. Did they play head-to-head? I'd have to look. Did Virginia Tech and Boston College play head-to-head? They did, and they lost to Virginia Tech. So we're going to put Boston College at 10 and Virginia Tech at 9. I think that's only fair. Even though Boston College has a better overall record, they have the same ACC record. So Boston College 4-4 in the ACC, 7-5 overall. They do get a pretty good win against Syracuse. I've got a lot of respect for Syracuse. We'll talk about them later. Obviously, Syracuse dethrones Miami. Bad losses. They did lose to Virginia. Speaking of an up and down team, they almost beat Missouri. Castellanos, I got another quarterback, or Castellanos, however you say this guy's name. Very athletic quarterback, had played well for them. Problem is, he's a turnover machine. Also, Boston College has, coach in their first year at the school, and Bill O'Brien. But then they bench Castellanos because he turns the ball over the same number of times as they're ranked, like 10 times a game. They bench him. He said, "You can't bench me, morons, because I quit." Hits the portal. Whoever takes him, I think you get everything you deserve with him. Any guy that just quits on their team when they get benched, when they're playing awfully and turning the ball over all the time, not a good look. What are they? Total offense 13th, total defense 9th. They do beat Pitt in rivalry week, 34-23. Another team will be interested to see what Bill does with this team. I don't know where they're ranked in recruiting. I don't think it's anywhere great. They're not in the top 25, but Bill O'Brien, probably is a decent coach and probably a good fit for Boston College. So we got Virginia Tech at 9. We already talked about that. Let's move to 8. Who do we have at 8? Are they on this page or the other one? Pitt. Speaking of teams that just absolutely collapse, this is actually go this way. Right? Yeah. Pitt starts off 7-0, finishes the year 7-5, 3-5 in the ACC. Hard to believe. I mean, I was sold on Pitt after the first 7 games, and they just absolutely collapse. Best win, probably Syracuse. Worst loss or bad loss, Boston College. They lose to Boston College this week, 34-23. They're ranked 8th in total offense for the conference, 11th in total defense, and hell, are they even too high on here? I don't know. I mean, I almost feel bad for Pitt, but again, just an absolute and total collapse. end up going with a backup quarterback that played well for them. And probably Pitt feels like, hey, they probably should have won that Clemson game where they were in position to and let it slip away. But you can't lose the last 5 games of your season like that. I'm trying to think of a team I can remember going 0 for 5 after starting off undefeated. You'd be hard-pressed to find it. But we got Pitt at 8. Now, number 7. Number 7 is Duke. I got Duke at 7. Now, some people might think I've got Duke too low here. They're 9-3 overall, 5-3 in the conference. But find me the really good quality win for Duke. It's kind of hard to do. Virginia Tech, UNC, maybe. Bad losses. They don't really have what I would consider a bad loss, but they don't have a quality win, and that's a lot of the reason why I have them here. Now, they definitely massively overperformed under the first year of Manny Diaz. In fact, they're 4th in total defense in the conference, 15 in total offense, though. They do win this week 23-17 over Wake, but it's a power ranking. I think if Duke played, 5 games with the people above them, they lose 3 or more of them. But that's not to take anything away. I am very impressed with what Manny has done with them in the first year. They didn't necessarily have a tough schedule, and again, they don't really have a quality win, but I'm more than impressed. I mean, they got gutted after Elko got hired by A&M. Georgia Tech takes their DC. They lose their head coach. Bunch of people, they lose their a generational quarterback for them. But yeah, well, I've got Duke at 7. 6, I've got Louisville. Louisville, a team that definitely took a step back this year. They make a conference title game in their last year, end up losing to Florida State. Boy, how the mighty have fallen. 8-4, 4-2 in the conference. They do have a good quality win though. Clemson, they did, and they beat Clemson on the road. They do have a really bad loss though, and it's a bad one to Stanford. Stanford beat both. That's their 2 ACC wins, right? Syracuse and Louisville, 2 teams that are in the top half of the conference, not even better than top half, top 6 of the conference. They absolutely get a monkey off their back and stomp Kentucky 41-14. And Kentucky, not a good team, but I think they had won like 3 or 4 in a row or more against Louisville. 4th in total offense, 8th in total defense. But 4 losses too many. I think I've got them fairly ranked here at 6. There's probably going to be a ton of Louisville fans that are like, well, you beat, 2 of these teams that I can think of head to head that you have ranked better than them. I just think if they played today with how those teams are playing, again, 5 times, Louisville loses 3 of them. Now we get into the top 30% of the conference. So the top 5 teams in the conference. Number 5, go ahead and type about it, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech playing some of the best football, particularly defensively, in their last few games. Look, I got my heart broken. They lose in 8 overtimes, the second longest college football game ever. 42-48, an absolute heartbreaker. They're 7-5, 5-3 in the conference. But they're bringing in a top 25 class, first 5-star, retain their AD. Oklahoma comes after Buster Faulkner. He's still at Georgia Tech, so he must have turned that down, or I don't think that they wanted the guy they hired over Buster, though. Could be wrong, but look, things are looking up for Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is definitely a team like South Carolina is in the SEC that you do not want to play if you're a good team. They do have a quality win in Miami. They were the first one to beat Miami this year. We'll talk about them in a second. Miami's a good team. Defense suspect, especially in the second half of the season. Duke, probably a quality win. Bad losses, I have Virginia Tech. Georgia Tech had no business going up there and losing to Virginia Tech. Georgia Tech, they didn't score an offensive point in that entire game. Not good. I think I said there's 6 total offense, 5 total defense. I think Georgia Tech, if you want to pick a dark horse for next year for the conference, I think Georgia Tech should be in that conversation. I think Georgia Tech's going to be an absolute problem in the ACC as long as Brent Key is there. Number 4, I've got Syracuse. Probably a team that most overperformed their expectations. Most people probably didn't have them making a bowl in their first year under Fran Brown, but they do bring in Kyle McCord, who basically gave Ohio State the middle finger. They definitely probably wish they would have had him in rivalry week. They lose to Michigan. I think Kyle McCord now is the passing leader for all of college football. He had a fantastic year. A lot of receivers had a fantastic year. They really didn't have any semblance of a run game, but it didn't matter. It just didn't matter. They were that good throwing the ball. Obviously, I don't understand some of the silliness with Fran Brown, but it is hilarious. He's kind of like a fan that's a head coach. He evidently FaceTimed Dabo, was like, hey, send me a Christmas card for getting you in. Syracuse beats Miami and knocks them out of the conference title game. What were they down 21-0 at some point in this game? Come back, break Miami's heart. It is what it is. Bad losses. They lost to Stanford. That's a bad one. Total offense, they're 3rd in the ACC. Total defense, they're 10th. But shout out to the Orange. Fantastic year for them. Number 3, no surprise here, Miami. Coach Coop, a lot of people have talked about it. If you say Miami went 10-2, that's a good year for them, especially since they've been in the ACC, which is now 20 years. 6-2 in the ACC this year, but the context matters. When you lose 2 games in the back stretch of the season, you probably feel like you shouldn't have lost to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech handled Miami, by the way. They handled Miami. They controlled time of possession. They ran it down their throat for like 270 yards. And then Syracuse, I mean, how many yards did Kyle McCord throw for in this game? 380 and 3 touchdowns. So you can't just tell me, it's just our run defense when you play Georgia Tech, and then, it's just our pass defense when you play Syracuse. There's something wrong with this Miami defense. I know a lot of people are trying to get Gertie or Gidry or however you say his name. They want him fired. There's 2 touchdown Tim articles that come out. I plan to do a live show. I think this is coming out Friday, so Friday night. Number 1 ranked total defense and total offense. I think that's doesn't tell the whole story. Obviously, I don't think Miami has the best defense in the conference, but they absolutely collapse. They've only made 1 ACC title appearance in the whole time that they've been in the conference since 2000 and was it 2004? It's been 20 years, right? And have never won it. You sitting at home have as many ACC titles as Miami does. And I mean, they could have gotten the monkey off their back this year. They just had to win they just had to win their last game against a team that they should be able to beat. And that's nothing against Syracuse. They're more talented than Syracuse, right? It's not, Syracuse has Kyle McCord, but you got Cam Ward, right? Woo! It's embarrassing. Both you and Florida State should apologize to the rest of the ACC. You say that we're all riding your coattails, this, that, and the other. When you joined the conference, they put you in different divisions. They had, was it Jacksonville or I'm pretty sure it was Jacksonville. It might have been somewhere else, but they had the ACC title in Florida because they just expected, they're going to play each other every year. You know how many times they've played each other? 0 times. 0 times. Miami's only been once. So, I don't know. Maybe next year, Miami. Maybe next year. All right. And I guess this will just go down to my prediction for the ACC title. This is probably going to make some people mad, but I'm okay with it. Do I have too many teams here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I don't. It's because this takes one. I've got SMU. Obviously, now this was a team that was talked about as a dark horse the minute that they joined the conference that I didn't really get, and I was flat out wrong about. 8-1, undefeated 8-0 in the ACC. They beat Cal this last week 38-6. 5th ranked total offense, 2nd ranked total defense. If I had to take a defense, I'd probably say SMU has the best defense in the ACC over Miami, for sure. I don't even think Miami is like top 3, honestly. They might even be top 5 in total defense, in my opinion, or if you power rank defenses. Here's the thing with SMU, and this is why I have them here. Tell me SMU's best win. Pause the video, look through their schedule. Who's SMU's best win? Is it Louisville? Is it Pitt? Is it Duke? Right? They lose to, was it the Mormons? Right? BYU. And that's not a bad loss. But the one good team, really good team you play, you lose to. Clemson, and this is something Pete's brought up, I agree with, has been tested. Yeah, they lose to South Carolina. Yeah, they lose to Georgia early in the year when they're ranked 1. But I like Clemson in this ACC title game. It's not taking anything away from SMU. Look, you can type, hey, this aged well, whatever, after the game is played Saturday. But I've got SMU too in my power rankings, and I'm not coming off of it. Number 1, I think Clemson wins. I do think right now, look, they're my pick. Clemson is 9-3, 5-2 in the conference. They have the same problem as SMU. I mean, what is Clemson's best win? Pitt, maybe? I mean, if you look through Clemson's schedule, their best win probably is Pitt. What's their worst loss? Louisville. They do lose to South Carolina 17-14. Rivalry weekend was just full of absolutely thrilling games. 2nd ranked total offense. That surprised me. Their 2nd total offense, 6th in total defense. I just think, one, they are a more talented team. Now, if the more talented team always won, then Vegas wouldn't exist. But I like Clemson in this game. I do think they win the conference. I do think they're ACC champions. I think Klubnik is playing as well as he's ever played, especially in the ground game. You know, they beat Pitt on a 50-yard touchdown run by Cade Klubnik. So I'm going to take the more battle-tested team over SMU. But you guys let me know what you think. These are my final ACC rankings, and I feel like I could defend where everyone is in this. Let me know what I got right. Let me know what I got wrong, what you agree, what you disagree with, and I'll talk to you guys next year on the ACC Power Rankings. Have a good one.